everyone, and welcome to Singapore Symphony Orchestra's musical soundbites, Enigma Variations. Conductor Jessica here with you today, and I can't wait to introduce you to this fabulous piece of music. And along with it, we'll be learning all about the instruments that the music is composed for. We'll be listening to lots of musical soundbites performed by the wonderful Singapore Symphony Orchestra, as well as taking a closer look at the musical score, doing a little bit of drawing, and watching some demonstrations performed by my special guests on their instruments. And you can all join in with me from your own house. Shall we begin? First, to introduce you to our wonderful composer for this series, Edward Elgar. Elgar was a very well-known English composer who was born in 1857 and lived until 1934. We're going to be looking at one of his most famous compositions written for the symphony orchestra called the Enigma Variations. It has a beautiful main theme that we hear in the beginning and then 14 variations that he named after his friends. Elgar wrote the Enigma Variations for a pretty big orchestra which had musicians from all four sections of the orchestra: the strings, the woodwind, the brass and the percussion. We're going to discover more about each of these sections over the next 4 weeks together. This week, we are starting with the string section. The string family is made up of all the instruments that produce sound by vibrating strings. This could be done by plucking the strings or using a bow to pull across the string, or even hitting keys with a hammer. The vibrations then resonate through the body of the instrument, which makes the beautiful sounds that we hear. Now, string instruments have been around for thousands of years. There are even stories of pictures drawn onto the walls of caves of some bowed instruments from as far back as 13,000 BC. There are lots and lots of different string instruments from all parts of the world, but the ones that we use in this work by Elgar are the violin, viola, the cello and the double bass. Each section has lots of string players and they all sit at the front of the orchestra, right in front of the conductor. You can probably see them from the audience the best when you're looking at the stage because they are at the front. I thought before we hear Elgar's music, we should have a look at the string instruments up close. You might remember meeting my first guest in SSO's first Soundbites, where we looked at Sasson's Carnival of the Animals. This guest played us a very beautiful swan. Can you remember? It's my sister Sophie, and she's here to show us her cello. Hello Sophie, and welcome to Musical Soundbites.
Hi everyone.
Sophie's brought her beautiful cello in to show us today, and before she plays something for us, I thought we'd have a look at the difference in size with my violin. So these are two of the string family. You can see that they look very similar in their shape, but we hold them a little bit different. So there's a few different things. One, I have a chin rest down here, and that's how I hold the violin, tucked under my chin. And instead, Sophie has this long spike, which she rests on the ground to help her play. I wonder how different our strings sound as well. You might remember my violin sounds a little bit higher up. My strings are the E, A, D and G. Let's hear Sophie's cello strings. Oh, fantastic, a much lower sound. Sophie has A, D, G and C. And is that C the lowest note that you can play?
That's the lowest note.
Now the double bass goes even lower,
Yes,
because the strings are even longer and faster and vibrate a little bit slower. Fantastic. And what do you do to make other notes other than these 4 open strings? How do we change the pitch?
well, I put my left hand and press down on the string to change the size of the string. That creates another note.
So the shorter the string is there, the higher the note is going to sound. Exactly the same on the violin. We just change the pitch by putting our fingers down. Fantastic. And do you sometimes play all the way up here as well?
I can do.
Wow, almost as high as my violin. Now, the cello we can see is made from this beautiful wood here. What about all the other pieces that we have on the cello?
Yeah, it's made of a few different kinds of wood. There's ebony, maple, spruce, and they all have different qualities which help to transmit the vibrations.
Wow, and so what's this bit here called?
This one is the bridge, and it holds up the strings.
The bridge, yeah, I've got a bridge there as well. It does look a bit like a bridge, doesn't it? Where all the strings go across. And what about here on the back?
This one is the fingerboard, because that's where we put our fingers.
Yeah, wonderful. Ebony, if we give your cello a little spin, let's have a look at the backs of the instrument. Mine's nice and stripy like a tiger. And look at yours, all those beautiful colours that you can see shining. If we give the cello a little tap, you can hear how it sounds. Very resonant, and that's how it produces the sound. All vibrates there in this beautiful cavern of wood here. Absolutely gorgeous. What's this black rubber bit down here do, Sophie?
Well, this is called a mute. So if we just leave it where it is right now, we're playing normally. And then we put it on. We'll listen to the difference in the sound. So it's actually dampening the vibrations and making it a little bit more closed in and softer.
And Elgar uses that technique in the variations actually. He uses quite a bit. We see it in the music as written as con sordini, and we just take this mute at the end and put it on there, and it just holds on to that bridge a little bit to change the sound. It's a great effect. What about if we did some plucking? How would we do that with the string?
Yep, I can pluck.
We call that pizzicato in the music, and then the rest of the time we're using our bow. And you can see how the beautiful bow hair here, when it makes contact with the string, you might even be able to see this vibrate here. And they come together, and that's how that sound is made inside the beautiful cello there. Sophie, sometimes I saw is when you put your finger down, you gave it a little wiggle as well. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is called vibrato, and it makes it sound really beautiful. Just like the voice has a natural vibrato, and it was used often as a decorative element, and it makes the sound very song-like and singing quality.
Makes it sound beautiful and warm, doesn't it? Very expressive, yeah. And all the string players will do that in the Elgar as well. There's one more thing that we hear in the Elgar, and that's when we need to use very, very short bows, when it says staccato or spiccato. You can show us some bouncing on the string. Oh, that's very short and spiky. We're going to use some of that in this episode today. We're actually going to do some drawing that sounds just like that as well. Now, we've heard you do some beautiful playing. We'd love to see if you could play a little bit of the Elgar theme for us so we can hear it all come together.
Sure.
Wasn't that beautiful? Elgar's theme from his Enigma Variations. Thank you so much, Sophie, and thank you to the cello for coming in and playing for us today.
Bye.
Well, that means that we're all ready to listen to our very first soundbite for today, which starts off with the string section playing the very opening theme from the Enigma Variations. While you're listening, you can grab some paper and a pencil and see if together we can draw a violin while the music plays. Here we go. What a beautiful start to this composition. I felt very calm listening to the music and think that Elgar chose very wisely to start his piece with just the string section. We heard all 4 of the string section instruments played at the beginning of the piece. Let's take a listen now to the first variation which Elgar dedicated to his wife Alice. In this variation, we hear the theme reinvented into a little phrase of 4 notes repeated in the oboes and bassoons, which in music we call a motive. While you hear more of the woodwind in this variation, you might be able to hear that the violins begin by floating around, softly playing a little accompanying rhythm which is syncopated, meaning played across the beat, and our cellos and basses are plucking the string on the beat. The music builds and gets really loud in the middle and then ends soft like it began. While we listen to this soundbite, you might want to have a go at colouring in the picture of the violin that we drew together. Well, that certainly got a lot louder and fuller in the middle of the piece. Did you colour in your violin? Let's listen to the second of Elgar's variations now, who he dedicated to a piano-playing friend of his called Hugh David Stewart Pale. Now, this music has some special words that tell us just how the character should sound. It's marked allegro and staccato, which means fast, bright and very short. I thought I'd try colouring these sounds as I listen. You can try this too. What colour do you think you'd choose for music that sounded fast, bright and short? Did your picture look bright and colourful as well? Isn't that the wonderful thing about music, that it tells us each a different story? Well, we're on to our third and final variation for today, which Elgar wrote for his friend Richard, who was an author of books. Now, this one has some fun techniques in the score for the strings, where they pluck the string, which we call pizzicato, and they move their fingers very, very fast to produce a little fluttering sound, which we call a trill. It also has some great dynamics where the music starts very quiet and crescendos, which means to get gradually louder, then decrescendos and comes back to soft again. I thought with all these trills and dynamics keeping the musicians' fingers very busy, we should keep ours busy too. So over the next 4 weeks, we're going to make a special little map of the orchestra that shows where everyone sits on the stage. So when you next see an orchestra play, you will know where they're all going to be. All you need is some paper and something to write with. Today, we're just going to add our string section to the map while we listen to this variation. I had such a great time listening to the first 4 sound bites of Elgar's Enigma Variations with you today. As always, we thank the wonderful musicians from the Singapore Symphony for their beautiful playing. I'm looking forward to exploring the next 4 sound bites with you next Sunday at 3 p.m. Remember, you can come back to visit these videos anytime at SSO's Facebook or YouTube page. And if you'd like to share your pictures with me or ask me any musical questions, you can send them to Jessica at this email, outreach@sso.org.sg. Until then, have a great week. I'll see you next Sunday.